Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the conversation series on mediation, created with an aim and vision to promote awareness of mediation in the world around us, and to talk about mediation and other alternative dispute resolution solutions from the perspective of a common person. We continue with a short legal disclaimer. The views expressed herein are the personal perspectives of the speakers and may or may not represent the views of the larger professional community they belong to. The conversation series aim to provide a general overview and awareness of the subject matter involved and may not be construed as a legal or professional advice in any manner whatsoever. This session is being recorded for wide circulation. Let me introduce the main speaker and the guest panelists for today's session on fathers and their experience in family mediation. We have Ms. Nurit Zubri. Nurit is a mediator, researcher, and an accredited family dispute resolution provider. She completed a Master's of Law at the Auckland University Law School, specializing in mediation, with her master's thesis based on the qualitative research project examining how fathers experience family mediation. With specific and deep understanding of the dynamics of family mediation, how to best address the needs of both mothers and fathers, as well as to protect the well-being of children. The themes and insights that emerge from her field of study are innovative and challenge the traditional view on the reasons for some of the typical behavior of anger and disengagement displayed by many fathers. We welcome you on board, Nurit. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
We have on board as guest panelist Mrs. Sushila Sarathi. Sushila is a design senior counsel practicing in the High Court of Karnataka with more than 3 decades of practice to her credit. She is a trained mediator from the ISDLS USA, international commercial mediator trained from the Strauss Institute of Pepperdine University USA. She is a trained in commercial mediation from ADR ODR UK London. She is a senior mediator and trainer recognized from the Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee of the Supreme Court of India and a master trainer of Bangalore Mediation Center. She is one of the members of the committee constituted by the Supreme Court of India in preparing draft legislation on mediation. She has authored many books, including 3 books on mediation, and a resource person for the National State Judicial Academies. Welcome on board, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Nurit, you are in a field where, understanding the dynamics of family mediation and to address the needs of fathers in there. So this is a very new and novel concept which has never been, looked at from that angle before. We would really want to hear the perspectives and with your study on this. The floor is all yours, Nurit.
Thank you, Sonal. So I first want to tell you how I got to doing this study. Probably from all areas of mediation that people practice all over the world, family mediation, in my view, is the most important one, because the last place that family needs to be in to sort out parenting and well-being of children is the courtroom. Parenting is something that parents need to sort out between themselves. Every family is different. Parents are the people who love their children most and who know what's best for their children because they know the children. Every child is different and every family is different. And if there's one thing that research found, since the 1980s, they've been doing a lot of research about what increases the well-being of children after divorce. Obviously, divorce is a very, very hard thing for children. And all the research they've done, they were talking about a lot of factors that affect the well-being of children. But all the studies say that the 2 most important things that will affect if the child will come out of it harmed or unharmed. One is that they continue having a meaningful relationship with both parents, not just the mother, not just the father, both parents. And the second thing is that there is a low level of conflict between these parents. Now, parents that go to court to fight over their children and have to write affidavits with, saying stuff about each other, how bad, he's a bad father or she's a bad mother. That's it. Not many of them can maintain a good relationship after a court case. And that's why mediation today is considered the best arrangement for the best sort of process to sort out arrangement after divorce. I'm not sure if Sushila, is that your experience as well in this field?
More or less, it is the same, Nurit. I really appreciate and I respect your views also. It has we have to acknowledge that the disputes between the spouses should not have any reflection on children. Number one, the parental planning should always happen not within the courtroom or through the court processes. It has to happen between the spouses. Maybe their chemistry is not working well as spouses. Nevertheless, they have to continue to be very good parents for their children. That's another aspect. And the third thing that I have always been requesting all the parents to see here is, are you fighting for the children or are you fighting through the children? Many a times they fight against each other through the children. And they consider children as properties. That's where they feel rejected. They feel very upset. So father's perspective or mother's perspective, what is exactly they want to happen? What is it that exactly that they do not want to happen? They don't come out very well. On paper, they project something. The projected prayers are different. Actual prayers that they want, actual reliefs that they want is entirely different. That's where it's only through mediation. I have been a litigator for 36 years. So I'm not telling that the courts are useless, never. But I'm only, what I'm contemplating here is that people should come forward to accept mediation. Only when it fails, then they can think of other options. But adjudication should never be the first option.
Yes, that's wonderfully said, ma'am. Because when you were talking about parents fighting through children, parent alienation happening is also one of the biggest concerns of the society, and this is a global phenomenon. So, Nurit, when see that the findings of your study, from the findings of your study, you know, in a system where disintegration of family is happening, where when the divorce word has been coined, what are the response of a woman versus a response of a man? Do you find that on the basis of your findings, do you find that there's a difference how they handle and deal with this aspect in their lives?
Yes, it seems that there is a difference between men and women in the way that they respond to divorce. The first fact, which is, I don't know, I found very interesting because I think it's contrary to the view, but in Western countries, I'm not absolutely sure how it is in India, but in Western countries, actually women initiate 70% of divorce. So the majority of divorce is initiated by women, and so men find themselves going through a process that they don't want to go through. And it turns out that the response of men to divorce is much more severe than women's response. The reasons for it, the first reason obviously is that they didn't initiate it. Typically, they find that when a woman initiates divorce, usually it's something that she's been thinking about for between 2 and 3 years, and processing it and going through the process until eventually she initiates it. But for the men, in most cases, it comes out of the blue. They don't even know that it is going to happen. So obviously, one, they're surprised. Two, men typically don't have good support systems. They don't have, even when they have good friends, it turns out that they don't tend to share very emotional content with these good friends. They might, like to go out with them, go to the pub or that, but they don't actually talk with their friends about the really hurtful stuff. So they do it alone. They deal with it alone, which is a bad thing. Now, we also, we train little boys to express emotions, not through crying and grief and that, but through actually the masculine gender norms train men that the only three legitimate emotions for men are anger, pride, and contempt. The weak emotions like grief, mourn, all these things are not emotions that men are allowed to express. It's not that they don't feel them, but they can't express them outside. So when they come to mediation, and that's one thing that, I would like mediators to acknowledge, they might look okay. They might say, I'm fine, I don't care, keep a straight face, but you have to be aware that behind it, they may be really devastated. And I will give you just a few facts that illustrates how bad it is for men. So number one, so these are different studies that, people have done over the years. Men commit suicide 4.8 times more than women after divorce. Men are admitted to psychiatric hospitals 9 times more than women after divorce. There was one study that checked the rates of car accidents that men do doubles from 6 months before divorce to 6 months after divorce. And the rate of physical illness like heart attacks, cancer, a lot of autoimmune illnesses increases significantly after divorce. So this internalizing of the grief rather than externalizing and getting help is really affecting men very much.
That is really brought out very nicely, because whenever we say that masculinity, the machohood, that false belief starts from the childhood nurturing itself, that you're a man, you're not supposed to cry. These kind of phrases are coined when they are brought up. And that false sense of I have been I am a failure, because the marriage is failing, the crumbling of the family. So I have been a failure, and this is not, it's as hard to take for a woman as hard to take for a man, but the feelings are going to be repressed by a man because of that upbringing, that you cannot feel sad. So, ma'am, what is your opinion on this?
I'm extremely grateful to Sonalji, because I could listen to Nuritji today. Wonderful. What an intensive study she has made. Hats off. One thing is, I don't have any statistics on my hand to say what is the percentage of impact on women vis-a-vis men. That's one thing I have to admit here. Nevertheless, I see here when Nurit said that there are three stronger emotions that control a man. One is that primarily, basically that is anger, pride, and contempt. As far as women is concerned, women are more driven by one of the strongest and oldest of emotions, that is fear. Fear of certainty and fear of uncertainty. What's going to happen from tomorrow? That's one thing. And by and large, I have seen, I don't have much exposure to handling cases from different people from different countries. I have exposure only to Indians, whether they are from India or they are stated anywhere else in the world. From that context, what I am telling here is that one is that from the Indian context, if you have to say, many women consider marriage as a status, part of their status. From tomorrow, I am not wife of so and so. So if you read, if you go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it can also be one of the needs of an individual. When I consider as from tomorrow, I am not so and so. Coming to the perspective of men, post-divorce, if the children are to be completely with the mother, if I am going to be a non-custodial parent, am I a father? Am I going to lose my status as a father? Am I being treated only as an ATM machine where I keep on sending money to my child? Am I only money-making machine? These are all strong questions. And another thing that we consider, whether they are from India or from any other part of the world, is it's very difficult for a man to accept rejection.
Yes.
That's something. From whichever walk they may be, whichever field they may be, they don't accept rejection as we accept as women. Maybe it's difficult for us also, but we get over. But it takes a long time for them to get over that. It's not that we are not being rejected. In different walks of our life, we all have been at different stages of our life. Nevertheless, this is what happens.
Yes, this brings us very valid points there, Nurin, because this brings us to the basic difference of an emotional vulnerability that a man faces when the D word is pronounced by the woman or when the family is disintegrating. This also brings us to a very valid point that what happens to children, why there is a feeling of disengagement with the children and devaluation of fatherhood that is happening in the family, like ma'am correctly pointed out that I am just the ATM machine. I am here just to pay because the woman gave birth to the child, and now because she's dependent, she's been nursing, and I am the one who's supposed to be earning. Even if she is earning, she might not, she has lost those important years of her life nurturing the children. So am I responsible for being just the ATM machine? That those kind, what was your study, I mean, when you were doing this, do these feelings came out in your study?
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
definitely.
What the one thing I want to say about the background, okay? They're talking in the research for the last about 50 years, they're talking about something called the gender revolution, okay? That's something that's just important to keep in mind, in the background. So the gender revolution, as the researchers call it, talks about the fact that, women have stopped only doing the traditional roles as women, and they are now going outside of the house and work and have careers and all that, on one hand. On the other hand, men have become more involved in raising children, where before a man was only responsible for the money you providing, protecting, and a disciplined figure. That has changed over the last 50 years. And today, men have become involved parents, nurturing involved parents. And that is something that is, it's a maybe a subtlety, but I think that's also really important. Women expect men to parent like they do. So if, say, the woman is, you know, working late today and she wants the father to pick up the children from school, and women expect men to do it like they do. But studies show that men parent differently to women. They put more emphasis, where women put more emphasis on the physical needs of the children, you know, cook the good food for them, keep them warm, keep them safe, things like that. Men put the emphasis on play and on emotional connection with the children. So they will roll and play with them on the floor and throw them in the air and take them to the playground. And they will have deep conversation with them about things, you know, that are important to the children. You know, it could be if a child really likes superhero figures, the father can really go into that with them. But women don't like this kind of parenting. You know, what do you mean you didn't cook dinner for him like I would cook dinner for him, and things like that. So the devaluation of fatherhood has a lot of layers. The first layer is that the mothers don't acknowledge how important the fathers are. And by the way, if you ask young children, a lot of them would say that they enjoy their time playing with the father more. So I think we as women, as mothers, need to think about that as well. Maybe do a little bit more play and a little bit less cooking. I don't think a lot of children will die of hunger, but I think we're probably going to have more fun with our children, but that's beside the point.
I-
Uh,
I'm sure women are also going to love, because a break from cooking is, really relaxing.
yeah, they can cook 3 nights a week too. But what's more important is that all the men I spoke to told me that they felt that the mediator doesn't respect their time as a father.
Yes.
The mediator, just like the courts, still think that it's okay for a father to see the children a weekend every 2 weeks, 2 days every 2 weeks. And all the studies that were done on creating a meaningful relationship, as I said before, said that a meaningful relationship, although it's not measured by time, they did say that it needs a minimum amount of time with the children. And for the children, for the father to be part of the everyday activities of the children, pick them up from school, give them dinner, take them to do the washing, put them to sleep, read them a bedtime story. These are the things that create a meaningful relationship. So for a father to be this visiting, uncle that comes once in 2 weeks and takes them maybe,
Santa parenting, basically.
that's not enough. That's not enough. And, I want to tell you a story, something I found, maybe the most fascinating thing I found in my study. So in the 1980s in the United States, the phenomena of absent fathers, which means fathers who disengaged from their children after divorce, was so common, was so extreme, that up to 50% of fathers disengaged from their children after divorce. There was a Canadian researcher called Edward Crook who went out he did a study of interviewing absent fathers and asking them, why did they disengage from their children? And he found something that I think is amazing. He found that these fathers who were absent fathers, when he was asking them about what kind of father were you during the marriage, during the relationship, he found that these were the most involved fathers. These were the fathers who would leave work early and go to the children's, soccer game, or come to school trips and be really, really involved, always made sure they come home early from work and be with the children and play with them before they go to sleep and all that. And then when he asked them, so why did you disengage? They said it was too painful. suddenly when I became this visiting parent, I would come to see my boy after I haven't seen him in weeks. And it's like he looked at me like a bit of a stranger, like, and then I would ask, so how was school? And they would say, oh, fine, fine. They didn't really engage. And his father felt that they lost the emotional connection they had with their children. And they said every time I would drop my child off at his mother, my heart would break and I could not bear the pain anymore. So I disengaged.
Yes.
So actually, the risk of fathers who do care, if they're not given enough time and if they're not given enough acknowledgement that they are good fathers, yeah, fathers need to be told, you are a good father, you are important to your children. Even if I, as a mother, don't want to live with you anymore, but I acknowledge that for my children, for our children, you are very important. And I want you to stay in the lives of the children. So mothers have to keep that in mind. If you give the father only 2 days every 2 weeks, there are chances that, he will disappear because it's too hard.
Yes, most definitely, yes. And here we'll ask, ma'am, when mediation is handling family mediation, especially when they are handling children, are they able to do justice to this aspect, as Nurit is saying, that children are, and we are not talking about the court, because court generally gives conditional or assisted or occasional visitations to children who are very small. But at any stage, a child needs a father, and like Nurit is saying. So, do you think mediation does justice somewhere vis-a-vis the court?
I always think that if at all we can do something, it can only be through mediation or conciliation or counseling, whatever it may be. It cannot be through adjudication processes. You being compelled to do something is different. You being voluntarily doing something is something different. That's one aspect. I really found one word that Nurit used in her conversation was that devaluation of fatherhood.
Yes.
It can happen from the other side also. Devaluation of motherhood. Oh, what she does, all that the mother does, I can do. What father does, all that the father does, I can do. No way. You can't be a competitor with your own spouse. Mother is not a competitor to father. Father is not a competitor to mother. A child is entrusted to them. It is not the property of either of the parents. Unfortunately, we are looking at our children as our properties. Children are never our properties. Khalil Gibran, famous philosopher, prophet, you have to read that. What a wonderful statement he said there. Children are not our properties. It is not the right of the mother vis-a-vis the right of the father to have the children or custody of the exclusive custody of the children, so that the other person can be an absent parent or an occasional visitor. What happens, even if the other parent is an occasional visitor, what happens on that day? They will pamper the child, they will give all the happiness, so that one fine day after 16, 18 years, the child is continuously with the mother. The mother must also understand these factors. Occasionally, father comes once a fortnight or once a week, spends 2 days with the child, and there is only happiness going from him, and he is an entertainment provider for the children, and children are attracted to the father. After 18 years, they run away to father.
Yes.
This also they have to understand. If you are completely withholding a child, one fine day, the child will revolt for its own reasons. The child will be silently judging. Though we as adults, we are not supposed to judge people by their observable behaviors. But what's happening here is devaluation of fatherhood or devaluation of motherhood can be controlled only through mediation. First thing that we insist upon in mediations is we lay lots of importance on one of the strongest communication skills and communication techniques also, either way, that is setting an atmosphere. We set an atmosphere where the devaluation of the other person and the status of the other person as a father or mother is completely taken off. Only in that atmosphere we start other conversations. Till that atmosphere is set in, we are not supposed to go ahead. And another important aspect I would like to say here is mediation is between the disputing parties. But what is the substance of mediation here? Subject matter of mediation, you can't say the child is the subject matter of mediation. The substance of mediation here is childhood. What right do all of us have? Do we have to target the childhood? We have no right. Child has a right over both parties, both parents, but parents do not have that right. This is an age where I have to choose whether I should be eating ice cream or chocolate or some chips. But what am I made to do here? I'm made here to choose between father or mother. How difficult it is. No, we are not. So that's where through mediation, we can allow the child to enjoy the childhood. Otherwise, we are taking one chapter of his life. Childhood itself is eliminated through court processes. That's where we have to take this issue very seriously.
Yes, definitely. And like you were also saying, Nurit, because parents are parents. You know that responsibility of a parent remains. And like ma'am also said, devaluing anybody, whether father or mother, is wrong. But yes, as you pointed out, that generally men don't speak about it, even if they are facing that emotional trauma, they are not coming out. And their faith in mediation somewhere, because of the adjudication process of the court also, which according to them, maybe the knowledge is not there, is mediation could become, a similar process. So their faith in mediation, is it restored by careful mediation, by unbiased mediation by mediators? That view also is necessary.
Yes, I think mediation has a very good chance of restoring these things. If the mediator is responsive, if the mediator understands, what's going on in the relationship that's in front of him, but also understands the cultural context and, the place that men are in at these changing times. Because, when I said before the gender revolution, the word revolution is important. We are in the middle of a revolution.
Yes.
And it means that everybody is a little bit confused, but I think the revolution is much bigger to the role of the father than to the role of a mother. In a way, a mother, even though, now she might be working outside the house, but the role as a mother hasn't really changed much. But when a mediator understands, where the fathers are and how complex their situation is, they can do something that I think, I came out of this study with one, if I had to say one word that if anyone, any mediator can remember out of this talk, is the word respect.
Yes.
If you treat the father with respect, of course you have to treat the mother with respect as well. But it seems to be, at least in New Zealand, that mediators and judges and society in general give a lot of respect to mothers,
Okay.
but don't always give the same respect to fathers.
Yes.
Every father that I spoke to told me the mediator was biased against me. That's one thing they told me. And the second thing they told me about their experience in mediation, they said, I felt completely powerless. I had no power. All the power was in the hands of the mother. Now, this is in New Zealand, this is in one cultural context, but I think it probably runs through all other cultures as well. The fact that men feel powerless in mediation comes, one, from the fact that in the marriage, in the relationship, typically have men more power than women.
Yes.
So suddenly on divorce, that changes. And suddenly, especially if the woman initiated the divorce, suddenly they feel they have no power. They can't say anything anymore. They can't tell her what to do. They can't tell the children what to do. Now suddenly the mother has control of everything. Now, you might say, I can see that you want to say, what's wrong with that? You know, if the man during the relationship thought he can tell the woman what to do and all these things, serves him right that now we put him in his place. But I'll tell you what's the problem with that. The problem is there is a psychological field that's called, there's something called non-control distress. And when, you know, all of us as human beings have a reasonable expectation to control important aspects in our lives. And when we find ourselves in any situation where we have no control over what's happening, we go into non-control distress. And this distress, our reaction will be to try and get control back in any way we can. And I think for a lot of men, the way to gain control is to continue the dispute, to escalate the dispute, to be more violent, to be more angry,
Yes.
because that's something they have control over. So if as a mediator, what you want is for the parents to reach a good agreement, you need to make sure that this father doesn't feel powerless. They need to feel that there is respect for them as fathers and that they have some control over the process.
That also brings us to one major thing here. While you were talking, I was thinking that first of all, it shouldn't have happened in the marriage itself, that both a man is controlling and the woman is, in a position that she has to listen. So when things are very neutral at that level, only things will do not escalate to this level. But if pre-mediation session, I think, as you were talking, I was thinking pre-mediation session is done, and that is done separately for both the genders, explaining them what the mediation process they are going into, what is expected, what would happen, what are their rights, what are their responsibilities. If that comes pre-mediation before both the parties are brought together, I think it will work for both the genders, and I think more for men to handle these kind of emotions and to feel involved, because when a person is not involved into something, then that offensive attitude comes, the offensive and the defensive attitude comes, which you are also explaining, of the anger, of the disrespect, of the brooding and the feeling, sulking feeling that yes, I am not being listened. So maybe the procedure is not told to them very, if we are able to explain that to them. Let's ask Mrs. Sushila ma'am's idea on that. What do you
Yes,
feel?
I agree with both of you. One is that, Sonalji, one is that I always encourage people to go for mediation
Ma'am,
before knocking the door of the.
just one thing. Ma'am, don't call me Sonal ji. Please call me Sonal.
Yes, I am 61-year-old and you are far younger. So
Please.
I would love to do that. Sonal, one thing that we have to understand here is that people should approach mediation instead of going to police stations and court at the first instance. And they should opt for pre-litigation mediation. Number one. Second is, even in whether it's pre-litigation mediation or court annexed mediation or post approaching the court or any other processes, even then in mediation, as you suggested, that there can be a pre-mediation session individually done with both parents, number one, father and mother individually. As Nurit suddenly said, very well said, that we can't ignore the fact that if there is any power imbalance, we can't expect good result in mediation. The child is with me. After all, what can the father do? All that the father is thinking that he would do, I can only do it. He need not have to be in the life of the child itself. If that is my stand, if with that stand, I think that I am in a powerful position, mediator will have to set an atmosphere in such a way where she will make her understand that what father can do or what mother can do is different, but father can never be a mother, mother can never be a father. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been two persons in the world like father and mother at all. So we have no right, nobody under the sun has got any right to say that father is not necessary or mother is not necessary. You can't be a father, you can't be a mother. But there are some helpless situations where father is not in the world at all or mother is not at all in the world at all. That's different. But as a single parent, notwithstanding the fact that my spouse is there, I can do everything is entirely different. They start quantifying what all I can do. What is the least that the husband is doing or the father is doing? It is not A to Z versus A to C that the father does. The mere presence of a parent will have its own impact on the child. Recently, I am going to share a case study where there was a dispute between husband and wife. The husband wanted to take complete control of the wife. For everything, he wanted to have control over the wife. And such a wonderful boy whom we had seen from the childhood. We were all worried, how can this boy do that? Then slowly we understood that in his family, the mother was taking complete control of the father. He did not want, she alienated her husband's family members from her family. That is, her husband and the child alone were there. She avoided all the extended family members of her husband. And she had a complete control over the husband. The child was brought up. He was silently observing the whole thing. And now the child felt that if I leave, now my wife will start controlling me as my mother has been controlling my father all these 30 years. I don't want that to happen. So from day one itself, I'll start exercising my control over the. See, look at this. What the child had observed silently, it had popped up after 30 years of marriage. Because when we went to, the persons went to different doctors and they analyzed, this person has never insulted anybody, never spoken, highly qualified. His qualification runs into 2-3 lines. How can this person do this? This was what the child has gone through. We are speaking of there is an absent party in every mediation. When there is a father, when the mediator is mediating with the father, there is an absent party, that is the child. When you are mediating with the mother, there is an absent party, that is a child. But that absent party is the main party. That's what we are forgetting. Our focus has to be there. That's where we have to drag. And one thing where we may fail is one thing, I'm speaking it for myself. I'm not telling about anybody else. That we need to give lots of time in these mediations, family mediations.
Yes.
Unless emotions are addressed, reasoning will not work out. And there are many thoughts which remain as a shadow. Thoughts unembodied in words is a shadow. So 2 or 3 sessions, he will not speak at all. Particularly, more or so in many of the mediations I have done, I have seen men do not express themselves. They do not speak too much. But you have to bring them to that area where they feel very comfortable and they went out, everything comes out. And they are very calm. Then they see something. With the women also we have to do. That's where mediations, I suggest that mediations must be taken very seriously. Family mediations should be taken very seriously. And we owe a responsibility to the society at large. Supposing, imagine a situation where, 20 years back, there were situations where I was in India, my husband would be in America or China because of some valid reasons. And he would come here once a year or once in 6 months. But nevertheless, the children grew very well. There was no connectivity between the father and the children. There was no internet or something of this kind where you can talk to your children every day through WhatsApp video calls. Nothing was there. But still the family, because that subjective satisfaction that my father is there, my mother is there, and they're not separated. That gives that safety factor, that security.
Yes.
How do you replace that?
Sorry. Sorry, please continue.
That's what that I was concluding that. See, that security feeling of a child should, first of all, a child should feel secured. Otherwise, why should mother and father be there? Why you see any animal, you go to animal kingdom and see. They feel secured. Even a monkey takes the child, and the child, that little monkey sits like this. That cushioning effect only children will get from their parents. Sometimes that cushioning effect I will give, sometimes that cushioning effect my husband will give.
Yes.
That's entirely different.
That is what the importance of respect is, very important. And that cushioning effect can only come when the relationships are very good. But we are talking about a time where relationships have actually gone very soft. There is disintegration of the family, there is confusion, there is pain going on, there are volumes of complaints, disrespect going on. At that time, the need for putting things together, and yes, there has been a rift. That's where things come to a mediator. That's where there's crumbling system has come to this level, that outside help is required to maintain that balance for the children. That's what I think is most required. So that's how we were talking. Like, yes, as ma'am also pointed out, that men don't speak so easily. Women can cry. Men are conditioned not to cry, to give that feeling of, you are in control of everything. And even if something wrong is happening to you, it should be like, oh, I am still okay. That explains a lot of things that Nurit was also telling about her study. So coming back, uh, any closing comments, Nurit? I really feel
How long have we got?
Yes. We can talk any longer. We can talk anytime. Any,
I just wanted to say two things before I sort of maybe conclude what I think mediators can do to improve family mediation. But before that, I just wanted to add to what Sushila was saying about the importance of two parents. In the US, they've done a study about absent fathers because it was such a common phenomenon. They did a study and they found the following. And these statistics are something that I sometimes tell mothers when I have in mediation a mother who says, I don't want this father in the lives of my children. He's hopeless, he doesn't work, he's not providing. I don't want him in the life of my children. I sometimes give them the statistics. The statistic says that 85% of youth in prison have an absent father. 71% of school dropouts have an absent father. 90% of runaway children have an absent father. And fatherless children are much more likely to suffer depression and suicide, be victims of abuse, promiscuity and teen pregnancy for girls, and substance abuse. And, you know, at the end of the day, in every country, in every culture, when we do family mediation or when we do family court cases, there's one principle that sits there, you know, above. The most important principles is the best interest of the child should be the factor that decides, you know, what's going to happen with parenting. And when you see these statistics, there's no doubt that children do better when they have a father in their lives. Even if you think, my child is not going to go to prison or my child is not going to become a drug addict, well, the statistics are there. Do you want to take the risk as a mother? Do you want to take the risk of your child, you know, being one of these figures in the statistics? Probably not.
Yes.
And if I can say just a few things that as a mediator, when you go into a family mediation, there's 6 things I think you can do better. One is have the awareness at the back of your head that this man, that this father that you see in front of you, even though he might look very, you know, composed and like, you know, he's got everything, he knows exactly what he wants to say and all that, very likely that this is just a facade and that behind it, he might have some really serious emotional problems going on. Maybe not, but most chances are that he has. So that leads to the second thing, and that is non-judgment. Don't judge. Don't judge a man. You know, the mother might come and say something, or he was doing that, or he was, you know, not being a good father, or not coming home on time, or things like that. It's really important not to judge. You're not part of this family. You don't know what's going on there. And if you want to really respect the father, then don't judge them and respect their role as father, not for their sake, for the sake of the children. Now, there's a few things about mediation style. A lot of mediators, and that's sort of a bit of a technical thing. There's basically 2 types of mediations as a big thing. There's the settlement style mediation, and there's the problem-solving mediation. Problem-solving has been proven to be much more effective in family mediation. Another thing is exploration of emotions. A lot of mediators are scared when high emotions start coming out. They don't want to know, you know, they tell the parties, look, I'm not interested in what happened in the past. You know, we're here looking to the future. I don't care what happened in the past. We're not. But the emotional place is usually where the solution is also. Until somebody can really express the emotion and understand that it's being heard, they often can't move on and start a cooperative relationship with the other party. Whether it's the mother or the father, the emotions need to be expressed. We're not therapists, we're not there to solve their problems, but we can't jump over that part until they get it out, they say what they need to say, they're probably not going to get over it and be able to really work together with the other parent to make it, you know, a good relationship for the children.
Yes.
So that's my advice for what it's worth.
Yes,
Very nice.
I think we all are moving in that direction only. While ma'am was also saying that, both the parents need to be validated. The emotions of both the parents need to be validated. Yes, there are times when men, especially in the court system, it is always the victimization of the woman. I think that has really led to this. And it's not that victimization is baseless, because as we were saying, that there are in marriage, yes, the man, and that is because of the upbringing of the male gender, that false sense of masculinity you know, being nurtured as little boys, that resulted in an unbalanced uh, behavior in marriage, because there are women who actually have voiceless parenting. They are just taken as nurturers. They don't have any say in the future of children, in any decision making regarding to children. So there is, as you were saying, there is a feeling of, why this marriage? If when once the women started earning, there did come a feeling amongst women that when I am experiencing voiceless parenting, might as well have a voice. So this is the aspect which victimizes the women and brings that thing out, that she is the victim, because somewhere deep down this has been happening. But then uh, a very clear and a neutral approach to by a mediator would really make a lot of difference. That's what we all are, I think, bringing out. Yes, ma'am, you wanted to say something.
I agree with Nurit and Sonal, with you also. One thing that we need to understand is, in any family mediations, first few sessions, I am right, you are wrong. That will come from both sides. The second is how I have been made a victim, victimization, stories about victimization. Then we make them understand each other's story. We put a larger screen where they see, and they try to see the areas where it is common. It's not my story or your story, but our story.
Yes.
If our story part is good, how much of our story part is good, how much of our story part is not good. I want to get rid of my husband because the relation has been toxic. In order to get away or move away from the toxic relationship, they are coming here. But my child's relationship with me is not toxic. My child's relationship with my husband is not toxic. But just because my relationship with my spouse is toxic, are we implying something? The child's relationship with ex mother or ex father is also going to be toxic? What right do we have? The child's relationship has never been there, which is considered as toxic relationship. I can understand if he's an abusive father or an abusive mother, something of that kind. That's where there are some mediations, family mediations, where we have come across situations where there are so many false accusations, number one. Number two, there are genuine accusations. Number three, there are situations where the kid or the child should be made to know about the bad behavior of the other parent. This is what they expect us to do. It's very difficult. But what I'm suggesting here is, through mediation, if we are very careful, we can make them understand only one thing, that the relationship, if it is toxic, if you have made an informed choice of moving from each other, away from each other, fantastic. But see to it that the child doesn't end up with toxic relationship with either of the parents or both the parents. That's all. That should be our end aim.
Yes, I think.
What I feel is, one thing that predominantly controls a woman or a man is that if I have to separate this woman or man from my life forever, my child should also not have any connection with him or her. Otherwise, through the child, there is every chance that that man will come back or that lady will come back.
Yes.
This is what this is their apprehension. Many people suffer in imagination, more so people who are into litigation. They suffer more in imagination.
Yes, and as you were rightly saying that, false allegations from either side, that is how litigation has been, although it should not be, but has been over the years. And that is why there is a need for now empathetic listening by a mediator, by a trained mediator who understands, who first of all has to educate both the parties to understand what the process is. Because it is not adjudication process, and which the people are so used to. Somebody will tell us what to do. Somebody will, and we will cry, or tell our story in front of this person, and maybe this person will adjudicate and do justice. But that's not where justice is happening. The real justice is happening here inside somewhere, inside your heart. And so there is no point telling lies to someone, or false allegations coming out, because there's no point. Nobody is gaining anything, nobody is losing anything with those false allegations coming out. So it's not a court procedure, it's not an adjudicatory. Nobody is going to tell you what is to be done. You're the best judge of your own life, and that's what a mediator is doing, is bringing you to the portion where you take responsibility of your life and your emotions, and the lives of those whom you have brought into the world, and who deserve all the best from you both as parents. So I think that's what I would rather say.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you for everything. And I really appreciate Rectitude ADR for taking this initiative. It's a human service that you are doing.
Um,
Congratulate you also.
it's a pleasure to have people come around, have joined hands, and take time out. Like it's a pleasure. It's a Sunday, and you have taken Nurit also from far off, time gap, and people have really realized the need and importance, and it's really a pleasure. And Nurit, thank you so much, ma'am. You also, Nurit, it was a pleasure talking to you. That study should have to go to a lot of people around the world, because people should not have that biasness in their mind when it comes to family mediation. Both sides. Neither the women needs to have that bias, nor the man needs to have that bias in their mind about mediation.
Thank you
Thank you.
both for the very
Thank you.
constructive conversation and for the opportunity to spread my word. And yeah, good luck. I hope that mediation really flourishes in India in the near future. I think it's a really, really an
Needed.
amazing process and should be used more. So good luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nirit.
Just